My Lords, the Government is committed to protecting the most vulnerable households and expects water companies to put robust measures in place for households that are struggling to pay their bills. We are bringing forward secondary legislation to introduce new and increased compensation, double the previous amounts or more, which will be compulsory for water companies to pay customers for poor service.
As the Minister is struggling to provide information about social cost of leaving water in private hands, let me help him a little bit. Analysis suggests that between 2025 and 2050, customers of privatised water companies would pay over £1 trillion. That is expressed in 2025 prices. It would probably be higher as companies raise capital from customers while shareholders take returns. People won't own a blade of grass in return. If the Minister disagrees with this alternative analysis, can I ask him to commit to publishing the government's data, please?
Well, I would say to my noble friend that the Government has indeed published its analysis of the cost of renationalising the water sector, which I believe is what he is getting at. And that analysis is that it would cost on the basis of regulated capital value, which takes into account, of course, not just equity but also debt. It would cost at least £100 billion to renationalise the water industry. And instead of doing that, my Lords, we're not going to unpick the current ownership model, during which time underinvestment and sewage pollution would only get worse. We believe the answer is better regulation. We've introduced the Water Special Measures Act, which has already hit on block bonuses for 10 water executives and toughened the rules, so bosses face up to 2 years in prison for covering up sewage spills. And following the Cunliffe review this year, we're taking forward a number of reforms of the sector, chiefly the creation of a powerful new water regulator.
My Lords, does the Minister regret that average household water bills will rise by £123 a year from this April? Given that so many families already spend more than 3% of their income on water, what can be done to reverse years of shareholder and executive bonuses without improved services and genuine reinvestment? Why is it that customers, even now, even after the Cunliffe review, are still having to bear the cost of historic uninvestment?
Well, I thank the noble Baroness for that question, and it's what it does to build on the answer to my noble friend Lord Sicker. We have already put in place new measures, including the emergency legislation last year, to ensure that we are bearing down on water executives, and we have indeed taken action. As I said, we are putting in place robust support measures for customers that are struggling to pay their bills, and as a result, water companies have more than doubled the number of customers that receive help with their bills through social tariffs, from 4% to 9% by 2030. We're working with the industry to keep current support schemes under review to ensure current customers are sufficiently supported.
Thank you. I think it's our turn. Thank you so much. Thank you. Does the noble Lord the Minister agree with me that the issue really isn't public or private ownership? The issue is that the regulator clearly lacked the financial engineering skills to understand, spot and curtail the excessive debt loading and value extraction by private equity in previous years.
Well, I agree completely with the noble Lord. Efficient and precise and forensic regulation is what is needed in this sector. That came across very clearly in the report of the Water Commission, Independent Water Commission by Sir John Cunliffe, and we have already committed, in response to his report, to establish a single regulator for water, and indeed also to introduce a regional element within the new regulator, so that working with local communities, local businesses, the regulator can, and indeed water companies, the regulator can take account of the circumstances that are needed to ensure that the needs of the area, whether it's in terms of agriculture, whether it's in terms of built environment, are taken account of when in determining water company action.
My Lords, the Cunliffe Review does indeed refer to the need for a single regulator, and it concludes in Regulation 16, and I quote, "This regulator should combine the functions of Ofwat, the Drinking Water Inspectorate, and water functions for the Environment Agency and Natural England." Natural England is being given a very big role in the planning and infrastructure bill, and I just wonder how this fits with what the government is proposing if they fulfil the recommendations of the Cunliffe Review. Will we have to rewrite the planning bill when the next water bill comes along?
I thank the Noble Baroness for her question. Indeed, I'm interested in this area and indeed in the Planning and Infrastructure Bill. And I don't think anybody in our Noble Lordship's House would really like us to go through the pains of going through the Planning and Infrastructure Bill again. That isn't what we're going to do. But it'd be helpful for the House to set out the fact that we've already announced 5 commitments that we are a response to the Sir John Cunliffe's review and his report. We will be publishing a white paper, and we hope to have a water reform bill in the next Parliament.
My Lords, I speak as a Thames Water customer. On the 6th of August 2024, Ofwat announced a fine of £104 million on Thames Water, £47 million on Yorkshire Water and £17 million on Northumbrian Water. Almost a year later, the Minister said that, quote, Thames Water should pay the fine by the 20th of August 2025. Have they paid up? And can my noble friend the Minister say why it is that organisations with criminal convictions seem to be allowed to negotiate fines when other criminals would not get away with that?
Well, I think we've been. I thank my noble friend for that question. I'll have to say I'll have to write to her to the precise detail of her question about whether that fine has been paid. But I think we've been very, very clear by the Water Special Measures Act and indeed through our response to the Cunliffe Review that we are absolutely going to bear down on the actions of executives of water companies that take unjustified profits. We've already done that. We've already fined a number of organisations, and cumulatively more than £240 million in wastewater enforcement fines and redress have been confirmed by Ofwat in 2025. We're serious about tackling the state of the water sector, and we're absolutely very, very clear that water companies here are meant to secure investment and keep bills down, not take profits.
My Lords, there are ongoing concerns about the financial position of Thames Water. Can the Noble Lord the Minister please confirm that, no matter what, including special administration regime, consumers will not be forced to pay higher bills to cover failures at Thames Water or indeed any other water companies?
Well, the Noble Lord will be aware that there is a high bar for use of a special administration regime, but we have stepped up our preparations and we are ready for all eventualities, including being ready to apply for such a regime if necessary. Whilst the company is stable, we have stepped up the preparations. It's absolutely clear that if they are in serious breach of their principal statutory duties or an enforcement order is appropriate for the company to retain its licence, we will act. We'll make sure that it is not at bill payers' expense.
My Lords, going back to the criminal convictions, the water companies at the moment have 12,000 criminal convictions against them. So can the Noble Lord the Minister tell me at what level, what number will you consider these people criminals and not fit to have an operating licence to deliver our water?
I can only repeat what I've already said. I've already said now. Well, it's very simply the case that we're absolutely continuing the regime of the approach of the previous government. But we have done more. We've introduced new legislation last year to ensure that we can block executive bonuses, which we have done. We'll continue to bear down on water companies and ensure that their executives can't take unjustified bonuses. And we'll continue to make sure through the progress of the white paper, which will be coming shortly for your Noble Lordship's consideration, and then hopefully legislation next year, although I can never obviously say what's going to be in a future King's speech. We will make sure that the water companies do not are absolutely live up to their obligations to both customers and indeed the taxpayer.
My Lords, can I try to help?
My Lords, how longer?
Try to help the Noble Minister. Is he aware that the American president is now investing in private companies in a way that the USA has not seen or done before, seeing that there's strategic advantage in that? When we present the water bill to us, could we please explore alternatives to the methods we presently have for investment and ownership and try to spread it over a broader front? And if he can't give me an answer today, when I raise my question on public-private partnerships on Monday, maybe his Treasury Minister may be able to do so.
Well, I thank my noble friend, and of course we'll be looking forward to his question on Monday. But ahead of that, I can say this is exactly what the response to the Cunliffe review will be doing in both the white paper and then future legislation. It's considering a range of options, for the way that we harness the potential of private ownership to provide our water supply and ensure that we have a water infrastructure that is fit for the future.